Year visas will now be extended to up to 5 years, and it's all part of a people-to-people initiative between the two nations that's been ongoing. And Obama framed the agreement with a domestic audience here in the US in mind, saying the program would add $85 billion a year to the US economy and support tens of thousands of jobs. And while these agreements are laudable, these sort of agreements are relatively low-hanging fruit. The really critical deals between China and the US have yet to be negotiated in full, and there are growing disagreements between the two largest economies. The bigger issues will dominate discussions between the two Presidents, Xi Jinping and President Obama, when they meet for a summit on Wednesday. They're also having a bilateral on Tuesday. Let's have a look at what's at stake.
As US President Barack Obama arrived in Beijing, two central questions. Just how committed is Washington to the so-called rebalance to Asia? And what is the next step in US-China relations? The much-anticipated meetings between Obama and Chinese President Xi Jinping over the next couple of days will be their first summits since the informal gathering at the Sunnylands estate in California last year. There, President Xi called for a new model of great power relations, where both sides express respect for each other's core interests. But what that concept means to both Beijing and Washington has yet to be fleshed out. There are core areas where the two largest economies are working together. On climate change, expect progress when the two leaders meet. Also, perhaps on Iran's disputed nuclear program, the DPRK's nuclear program, and the future of Afghanistan, Ebola too, and perhaps progress on a bilateral investment treaty. Then there are other differences. Both will push alternative visions of free trade areas for the region. Is the US rebalance a veiled attempt at containing China? And cybersecurity and the tit-for-tat allegations of cyber spying have done little to inspire confidence. And in China, a lot of criticism of US close-in surveillance of China's coast, and in Washington, suspicion of China's activities in the East and South China Seas. As the US President prepared to depart for Beijing, his top officials gave speeches that emphasized the importance of the US-China relationship.
The President remains deeply committed to his Asia rebalancing strategy.
An engaged, productive, and constructive relationship with China is absolutely essential to ensure.
But without giving much detail. It was left to think tanks here in Washington to debate what this meeting will mean and what may be achieved.
I think everything should be on the table that can be. There will be some conversation about cyber, but I think they'll both agree to disagree, as again, and other things that the United States cares about, like North Korea and Iran, probably are going to get some discussion, but not much conclusion.
Agreeing to disagree on major issues may be progress, but many analysts believe that the fundamental shift in how Washington and Beijing perceive each other has yet to happen.
Because both sides recognize a Cold War will bring both of us big cost, and so there's a lot more to be gotten by working together.
So it comes back to this concept of a new model of great power relations. Does it mean the same thing to both nations? The short answer right now is no. Washington thinks the model means that China, as it rises, will fit more and more into the existing international architecture. But for Beijing, the concept means much more that Washington will accept that China has strategic interests that may run counter to the US, that they should be respected. So still is slightly talking past each other.
And Nathan, something significant, that handshake between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe getting a lot of attention.
Yeah, a short meeting and an even shorter handshake. Not a grip and grin as it's known. In fact, very little grinning. The atmosphere seemed pretty tense. But it's the first time the two have met since being in office, and the first time since this 4 points of consensus was signed last week between the two, which is reducing tensions over the Diaoyu Senkaku Islands in the East China Sea, setting up potentially, according to Abe telling Japanese media, a maritime conversation hotline. Apparently President Xi telling Xinhua that basically he told Abe to stop historical revisionism. So at least they're talking to each other, because as we know, the relationship has been extremely frosty, and a dealing down of tensions will please not just people in China and Japan, but also the US has been very nervous about the ratcheting up of tensions.
Yeah, that face-to-face significant indeed. Nathan King, thank you so much. Turning now to Russia's role at APEC, CCTV's Anya Ardayeva joins us now from Moscow. And Anya, did Vladimir Putin and Barack Obama meet at APEC?
Officials said U.S. President Barack Obama